Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. You may have heard that George Kambosos' Matchroom debut has been officially announced for March 22nd, and it's being billed as a triple header. There's George making his Matchroom debut, there's Sky defending her title against the mandatory challenger Tiaria Brown, and there is Shernika Johnson, the New Zealander who does most of her fighting in Australia. It was thoughtful of Matchroom to bill it as a triple header. Thoughtful and savvy, because Shernika Johnson has had a good number of her fights right there in Australia. The Australian boxing community is familiar with this fighter, with this champion, who will be facing Nina Hughes for the second time, the woman who she won the title from. Both fighters have been out for the same duration of time with no fights in between. Neither Shernika or Nina have seen action since they fought each other. So they're both going to have some ring rust to shake off, but it does help Shernika that she's 12 years younger than Nina. She's 29, whereas Nina is 41. She's not getting any younger. I got Shernika winning a rematch. I think she's going to hang on to the WBA title, and it really helps that the second fight is going down in Australia, just like the first one did. Yeah, I understand that Shernika was born in New Zealand, but she's as good as an Australian in this fight, taking on a Brit, that if anybody has home field advantage here, well, it really would be Shernika more than Nina. Shernika Johnson, a veteran of 18 professional bouts. She actually has more fights than Nina, even though she's 12 years younger. More fights, more rounds in the bank, and because she's younger, she's got more upside. This is just the beginning. What I figure is that if Shernika Johnson takes care of business like I think she's going to on this undercard, Matchroom may yet make more of an investment in her career and perhaps get her a unification match with one of the other champions at the weight of which there are two. There is unified champion of Denmark, Dina Thorsland, who's a bit of a hot potato, but there is also IBF champion Sherita Metcalf, and she, like Nina Hughes, is in her early 40s. Some affiliation to Lou DiBella Entertainment. Many ways she is a Lou DiBella Entertainment fighter, and he is affiliated with this event via George. With Matchroom's help and DAZN's recent purchase of Foxtel, it's conceivable that Shernika Johnson versus Sherita Metcalf could land in Australia on a bigger show than anything happening here in America. Why have Shernika fly halfway around the world to fight Sherita in somebody's ballroom, some shoebox, when you could do it in Australia in front of a lot of people? Shernika Johnson is a malleable fighter, an adaptable fighter, a fan-friendly fighter. She can box and she can bang, and let's be honest, she's easy on the eyes. The way I see it, she takes care of business against Nina. They'll get her a unification match with Sherita, and Sherita's gonna have to pack her bags and go to Australia. How does that fight play out? Well, Sherita Metcalf is a pure boxer. She's an outside fighter, a mover, long and limber with long levers, but she is 41 years old, and being honest with you, I'm not convinced she actually beat Miyo Yoshida in their last fight, what was Sherita's last outing. She looked her age. She got a gift. And I don't think the judges in Australia potentially will be as generous as the ones in New York were. In Shernika Johnson's last fight, the one with Nina, she came out guns blazing. She came out a lot more aggressive than I thought she would be, and given Sherita's methodology, it's conceivable that that's how she would fight her. She'd put her under a lot of pressure, force her under her back foot, and push her around. I like Shernika Johnson to win that fight too. The only fight I don't think Shernika wins is the Dina Thorsland fight, but I don't think Matchroom would go after her. Not after Nina. They would save Dina for last. Just some things to think about ahead of this Nina Hughes rematch. The rest of Shernika Johnson's career is on the other side of Nina Hughes, and all she's got to do is beat her again. I think she can. Men's Super Bantam and Featherweight news. Turkey LL Sheikh wants Inoue versus Ball. He, Turkey LL Sheikh, has revealed he would like to make a fight between Naoya Inoue and WBA featherweight world champion Nick Ball. Now, this is an idea that's been tossed around once or twice here on the channel on the premise that of all the featherweight champions at 126, Nick Ball is the smallest. So it's not as awkward an assignment for Inoue, who really isn't a big guy, as, say, a Brandon Figueroa fight would be, or a Rafael Espinoza fight would be. These more statuesque and gangly featherweights. Fighting Nick wouldn't be anywhere near as awkward as fighting one of them, though still risky, still a gamble, because what Nick Ball lacks in height, he makes up for in aggression, pent-up aggression, and pressure. He's a bruiser, he's a brawler, he's a mauler, he's a pressure fighter.
He's gonna be defending his WBA title against TJ Doheny very soon.
A voluntary title defense, a quick run out, and an easy one compared to the run of fights that Nick Ball has been on. He's earned it.
Former champion in Isaac Dogbay to a reigning champion in Ray Vargas, then another one in Ray Savage.
He's earned it. Though because Turki Al Sheikh is the one making this suggestion, you wonder that this won't end up being the third fight he has this year. In my previous video, we talked about Inoue's return to the United States for a potential Alan Picasso fight in Las Vegas, and that if he wins that fight, they want to take him to Saudi after that.
Saudi Arabia's power broker is talking about a Nick Ball fight where many of us made the inference that if he goes to Saudi, it could be for MJ. Maybe it won't. Maybe it'll be for Nick.
Compared to MJ, Nick Ball, for his WBA title at a fifth weight, is a bigger, better scalp. That you can't accuse Inoue of ducking MJ if he takes on an even riskier fight at a higher weight against an unbeaten champion who's a hard puncher, who's a handful.
He's a handful for the featherweights. He could be a handful for Inoue.
The way it breaks down, shot selection is going to be pretty important in a fight like this. Speed, accuracy, and shot selection. Because Nick Ball is such an aggressive guy, you know he's going to come forward and he's going to give you openings. You need to be stout enough to capitalize on them. Will Inoue's power carry to a fifth weight?
If it doesn't, he's in trouble. The way Nick Ball likes to crowd his opponents and judo toss them across the ring.
Rough and rugged, rough and tumble, these are bigger men than Naoya Inoue. I don't think he'd have any problem hip tossing him.
If Inoue's power doesn't carry, if Inoue can't get Nick Ball's respect, he could get ragdolled, and this could get ugly.
It's either Inoue clips him early for being too aggressive, or Nick Ball wears him down and wears him out.
Now, people might still favor Inoue going in. He might still be the betting favorite going into such a fight on the basis of what he's done so far, that he is still considered one of the best fighters pound for pound in the world. But even pound for pound fighters hit their ceiling.
Chocolatito did many years ago when HBO was still in boxing, when he squared off against Sorung Visai 2 times, lost the first one, then got knocked out in the second. That was at his fourth weight. What we're talking about here is at Inoue's fifth.
Presumably.
Yeah, I think a Nick Ball fight is many times more dangerous than an MJ Akhmadaliev fight. I absolutely do. Though let's not put the cart before the horse, because he's first got to get through his return to the United States against Alan Picasso. Then we have to see if Nick is who he ends up fighting in Saudi.
I don't mind the idea of that fight, but moving up the feather would essentially kill the Junto Nakatani fight,
which is a much bigger fight than this one. It's a much bigger fight than any other fight Inoue can have at these weights. That's a whale of a fight, a Godzilla of a fight. Arguably, the biggest fight Japanese boxing will have ever produced. Are you gonna gamble that? Jeopardize it to fight Nick Ball?
That's the question.
But that's also the idea that Turki himself pitched. It's not me connecting dots and making suggestions. Turki said this.
Turki says he wants to make it.
Would Inoue accelerate his plans to move up to featherweight for a Saudi bag? Or would he hold off on that the way he's been holding off on that? Because he ain't been in no hurry to move up to 126, and I really don't blame him. He's not a big guy.
Curious to see how this pans out.
Look, let me take this glass off, everybody understand. Look, let's weigh this out. 23, from Cali, Mexican, signed Matchroom. You know, he take a loss, he can bounce back. I'm 36, from Omaha, Nebraska, been through hell to get here. And I mean hell. And not just in boxing. Military, the streets, been shot, been blown up, been through everything. Injuries, all that. I can't afford to lose. So if you think I'm coming in this fight just to lay down, I'm not. So he can make it hard or it'll be easy. But I'm not losing, I'm not backing down.
I think you kind of answered that question. I said to Bowman, how much do you want, how much do you need this victory on Saturday night?
This is life changing. For me, the people around me, the kids I coach, my family, it's so much behind this. I'm not fighting for Steven Nelson. I'm fighting for a whole community of people. People who didn't get opportunities, that had a talent in and outside of boxing. I'm speaking for those people, man. Like, it's hard out here. And we gotta step up and make shit happen.
You got the chance on Saturday night, Diego.
The potential for things to go wrong tomorrow for Diego, it's definitely there. I mean, we've seen enough unbeaten Matchroom fighters, Matchroom prospects take a loss. But Matchroom is not in the business of coddling their fighters. They want to know what they've got, what they're investing in, so they don't match them soft.
And I won't criticize them for that. You gotta get your money's worth.
If you're going to keep investing your money in a fighter, that fighter needs to be able to deliver. It's not a one-sided partnership. Both sides have to be able to hold up their end of the bargain. So when they match a Diego Pacheco against a potential banana skin, a dangerous guy in Steven Nelson, of course I'm not against it. This is exactly the kind of matchmaking I want to see. I remember Steven Nelson from his days at Top Rank back when Terrence Crawford was still over there. And I remember thinking, they better not match Edgar Berlanga, against this guy, because if they do, Edgar's gonna lose.
Back when Edgar was still a top-ranked fighter.
And so it would seem that when Terrence Crawford parted ways with Top Rank, in many ways, so did Steven Nelson, because you didn't see him fighting under the banner anymore. 36 years old now, an orthodox fighter standing in at 5'10", where young Diego stands in at a whopping 6'4", with a 79-inch wingspan.
I was gonna ride the fence on this one, but what's the fun in that?
I'm gonna go with Diego. I'm gonna go with Diego Pacheco on points because of the dichotomy of the fight. Steven Nelson, even though he's not a little guy per se, everybody looks like a little guy next to Diego.
He's 6'4".
Makes him a taller, longer fighter than most super middleweights out there and puts many of them in the exact same position, to where they have to try to close the distance on him and get in safely, which is difficult because of those long arms and that power. Oh, I think Steven So-Called Nelson has the better corner by and large. Bo McIntyre is many times over a better trainer than Jose Benavidez.
But they ain't the ones fighting. These two guys are. And I figure that Diego's gonna make it hard for Steven to get close to him.
And it will be hard for Steven to get there on those 36-year-old legs. Last in action in August on the undercard of Crawford versus Madrimov.
He's been boxing once a year for the last 3 years. Once in 2022, once in 2023, then once again in 2024. It's hard to amass any kind of momentum on a schedule like that. He'll give a good account of himself, good enough that Matchroom may bring him back, use him again.
But I'm gonna go with Diego to win. I'm gonna go with Diego Pacheco to win a points decision in a dangerous fight.
Both guys can punch. You think this is gonna go to the cards?
I've seen it play out the way sometimes when both guys have power, both guys respect each other enough that they sort of cancel each other out.
Wary of each other. They don't take risks. They don't take stupid chances because they know the other guy can punch.
Seen that sometimes to where both guys are so careful not to make a mistake, they neutralize each other's power. Could that be what we see tomorrow? It might, but I'm gonna go with Diego, and if I'm wrong, that's fine.
It happens.
Finally, elsewhere in the super middleweight division, Canelo Alvarez announces his retirement plans. I have had difficult fights. Canelo Alvarez has revealed that he feels capable of boxing until he is 38. Canelo is the current unified super middleweight champion, making him one of the biggest names in the sport. He is coming off a unanimous decision win over Edgar Berlanga. As he retained his unified super middleweight titles, he had been linked with a fight against IBF super middleweight champion William Skull. A victory over him would make Canelo undisputed at 168 again. He is a 4-weight world champion, having only lost twice in his career against Floyd Mayweather and Dimitri Bivol. According to reports, he will take on Terrence Crawford in a Mexican Independence Weekend bout. But Canelo is expected to fight once before this. Canelo is currently 34 years old. There is a perception that he has shown a reluctance to face the biggest names as of late. His continual insistence on not fighting David Benavidez has raised a few eyebrows. Canelo demanded $150 to $200 million to make that fight.
That's disingenuous. Demanded? He demanded? This guy literally threw that number out there, hypothetically. I remember the interview because I talked about it here on the channel, and he didn't even mention anyone specifically.
All he said was that if somebody wants to give him 150 to 200 million to take that fight, then he'll take that fight.
It wasn't even a demand, it was a suggestion at best.
The perception was that he was pricing himself out to avoid the narrative that he was ducking. Talks over a Bivol rematch also broke down. Canelo wanted to have the rematch at 175, the same weight where he lost. Meanwhile, Bivol wanted it at 168 for Canelo's undisputed crown. Outside of the Crawford fight, those are the biggest bouts out there available to him, and if he does retire at 38, then there's plenty of time for him to take those fights. There is nothing to indicate that Canelo is on a massive decline, even if he's not at his peak anymore. There is every reason for Canelo to continue fighting. His bout against Berlanga showed that he is still capable of bringing in a huge amount of money without facing the top names. The Berlanga fight sold 650,000 pay-per-views while bringing in a live gate of 17 million. Canelo now has a better relationship with the Saudis, meaning that he could very well fight on a Riyadh season show in the United States. Equally, there is a narrative there for him to fight in Saudi. Either one of those options will earn Canelo a big payday. Based on his following comments, he has no plans to retire anytime soon. I don't know. Yeah, I'm getting closer to retirement, obviously, but I'm feeling great. I feel better than ever, but maybe at 38. Yeah, I think 38 would be the perfect time to start thinking about that. I've had difficult fights and ones I didn't need in those moments, and I take risks my whole career. I really love the challenges and what I do, and I try to show people how good I am. I love to go up and down in weight. I never look at my record and say, I did this. My trainer always says about it, and he always shows me things I've done. All the world champions I fought, and it is very impressive, Canelo said.
He says he has no plans to retire anytime soon, but plans change. They change all the time.
Canelo is what, 34 years old? I can't imagine who he's going to be fighting in the next 4 years. What, he's just going to cycle through mandatories?
Come on.
Story is he entered a 3-fight deal with the Saudis. Some speculate that his very next fight could be against newly crowned IBF champion William Skull. Then he would move into that Terence Crawford fight. But that's just 2 fights. Who's gonna be the third?
Is it gonna be Dimitri Bivol? Maybe if Dimitri beats Artur.
If Dimitri becomes undisputed at light heavyweight, that would be a good enough reason for Canelo to return to that weight and challenge him for what he's got.
Unfinished business. I don't think he has that same interest or energy for Artur.
Oh, in fairness, I don't think a lot of fighters have a lot of interest in fighting Artur. I don't know who Canelo might end up fighting in that third fight, but even the most well-made plans fall by the wayside due to chance and circumstance.